attracting the attention of the crowds, and the people are beginning to dote on them, and they've forgotten those old fellas that have passed along, the apostles and Paul. Those are memories. You know, I often meet an old man like that. I remember meeting a dear old man of God in the Midwest. He was 96. He hadn't been able to preach for about 15 years, but he preached from the time he was 20 till he was about 81. And he sat in the congregation, he listened to me preach with his old Bible, and he kind of shook. His teeth didn't work too well. They clicked a lot, but I don't know whether they chewed very good. And nobody even knew who he was, and he was very obscure, an old black suit and string tie, and you had to wonder about all the glory days and all the great years when he was a shining sword in the usefulness of the Lord. Well, Paul was kind of in the shelf kind of time of his life, and it wouldn't be long before he'd lay his head on a block and an axe set it flash in the sun and sever it from his body. It would be over for him in this world. And along behind him were coming these young men. And as young men are prone to do, to find their own place in the sun, they invariably criticize the generation ahead of them. Well, you know, those old boys didn't really have it. They weren't up. They weren't with it. And they were saying things like, well, you see, Paul's a prisoner because, you know, the Lord just kind of gently shelved him. I mean, he wasn't contemporary. He may have blown it in his life. We don't know all the things that went on. There's a reason the Lord stuck him away like that. And so Paul says concerning them in verse 14, and many of the brethren in the Lord, becoming confident by my bonds, are much more bold to speak the word without fear. Some people, you know, now that they see I'm a prisoner, they've become more bold. They're saying if Paul can be a prisoner for Christ, so can we. He's our model. He's our example. In other words, some are still following me. Some still believe in me. And boy, they're becoming bold, even though I'm a prisoner. But some, verse 15, preach Christ of envy and strife. What do you mean, Paul? Well, some are out there preaching Christ, but it's out of envy. In other words, they're envious of what God has done in my life. They're envious of my reputation. Here is Pelosi and her... And so they create strife in the body over their...
Uniformed and plainclothes police officers will be on extra duty today, then usually are deployed in the arena during Cavs games, so they're preparing for his arrival in Cleveland. Finally this morning, the average person spends 38 days of his or her life doing this. Or you should.
Well,
You should be. If you're doing what is recommended, 38 days of your life doing this.
praying.
No.